We have a problem. So much of our food today is dead, void of enzymes and beneficial bacteria that we need in our gut to function correctly. Instead, foods on the shelves of your local grocery store are combined with preservatives and additives, not to benefit your health, but to boost profit and increase shelf life. One of these dead products that you're probably familiar with is milk. Though not exactly dead, proponents of raw milk will say that pasteurized milk is basically a dead product that's been denatured so your body won't digest it as readily as raw milk, which has enzymes and beneficial bacteria intact. Pasteurized milk has basically been cooked. In reality, it's more of a dying product, and ultra-high temperature treated milk, the shelf-stable stuff, is effectively a completely dead product. But this video isn't about raw milk. It's about how to resurrect your pasteurized milk from the dead and add back live bacteria and enzymes to benefit your gut health, mood, energy, and more. Especially if you're lactose intolerant, don't have access to a reputable raw milk dairy, or are hesitant to try raw milk in general. In this video, we'll talk about the benefits of making your own zombie milk, and why it's the only quote-unquote processed food you need. Personally, I make it once a week, and I'll walk you through how I do it at the end of this video. If you haven't guessed, we're basically talking about making our own yogurt today. But to legally call it yogurt, it'd need to contain two types of bacteria: Streptococcus thermophilus and Lactobacillus bulgaricus. If it doesn't have these, it's a, quote, fermented milk product. But let's be serious here, zombie milk has much more pizzazz. You might be saying to yourself, I could just buy yogurt at the store, why should I make it myself? And there are plenty of reasons to. You might not know this, but most yogurt in stores doesn't have any meaningful amount of live bacteria in it. Some don't have it at all. There are also beneficial strains of bacteria that are not found in store-bought yogurt in general. Not only that, if you're lactose intolerant, you probably can't comfortably digest big yogurt brands at the store anyway. But why is this? You see, the bacterial content of store-bought yogurt tracks back to the process of fermentation. Any process that takes a long time to do is the enemy of food production. This means that fermentation is essentially public enemy number one. Tons of money has been invested to figure out how to speed up fermentation of any food that requires it, like bread, beer, and yogurt. And because of this, most big yogurt brands limit their fermentation period to 4 to 6 hours. That's a lot of time to wait for any production process, but we need much more time for our zombie milk. 4 to 6 hours is the minimum amount of time to achieve a nice yogurty flavor, but it's not great in terms of having high populations of probiotics or for lowering the amount of lactose in the yogurt. But why is it important to have higher populations of live bacteria in yogurt? Research into probiotics and their benefits are ongoing, but the general idea is the more the better, especially if you're trying to rebuild beneficial bacteria populations in your small intestines. Some bacteria will never colonize your gut, and others can take several weeks or several months to set up shop. During this time, you need to ingest high amounts of whatever bacteria you're hoping will rent out that penthouse suite in your gut. In short, store-bought yogurt might have tens of millions, possibly hundreds of millions of live bacteria per pack. Probiotic supplements often have hundreds of millions per dose, but our zombie milk will have billions. Honestly though, in terms of probiotic supplements, and probably yogurt in the stores, a lot of the time they either contain dead, non-active strains, or don't even contain the strains listed on the ingredients list. It's honestly best to do your own research and find out what brands actually contain what they say they do, but at the end of this video, I'll show you what I personally use. Having billions of bacteria in our zombie milk also means that it will contain almost no lactose. We'll achieve this by fermenting it for 24 to 30 hours. So if you are lactose intolerant, you should be able to handle this type of yogurt. And for some reference, brands like Dannon and Yoplait ferment their yogurts 4 to 6 hours. Other brands like Stonyfield and Nancy's ferment their yogurt for 10 to 12 hours, which means they have higher concentrations of live bacteria than the biggest brands, but not as much as the stuff we're going to make at home. But why is it important for us to get live bacteria? Honestly, probably some of us don't need to eat billions of bacteria every day because we've already got healthy, diverse colonies in our gut. But for a lot of us that have health issues, especially digestive or gastrointestinal issues, probiotics can help. Cardiologist Dr. William Davis has explained in interviews that some species of bacteria that normally populate our small intestines, like Lactobacillus reuteri and Lactobacillus gasseri, are particularly vulnerable to antibiotics. He says if you go on a regimen of antibiotics and don't replenish these species after, it's possible for fecal bacteria from your colon to populate your small intestine, which can then cause other health problems like those related to small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO. Some environmental exposures like glyphosate, which actually acts as an antibiotic, can negatively impact our gut microbiome as well. And this stuff is almost impossible to avoid, especially if you include grains in your diet. Emulsifiers like carrageenan might also be negatively impacting your gut microbiome by interfering with quorum sensing, which is how bacteria talk to each other. It's basically like there's a constant war going on inside of everyone's guts, and if the beneficial bacteria populations lose, then harmful strains and other microorganisms like yeast can populate places where they really shouldn't be in your body. Our microbiome plays a huge role in mood, immune response, vitamin production, and other key functions. In fact, Dr. Davis has also explained that bacteria that would normally live in our small intestines should provide us with all the vitamin K2 that we need. But a lot of us don't have healthy populations of these bacteria anymore for one reason or another, like we've taken a lot of antibiotics in our lives. Which is one of the reasons why I make my own zombie milk. And this is how I do it. I use a modified version of Dr. Davis's Lactobacillus reuteri yogurt recipe. Some people choose to heat their milk beforehand, just make sure you don't boil it. Okay, here's what I do. I take 1.5 liters, which is about 1.5 quarts, of whole milk, 7 to 10 Lactobacillus reuteri probiotic tablets, or since I'm remaking it here, I'll use 2 tablets with 2 heaping tablespoons of my last batch as a culture. Whisk the probiotic tablets, yogurt culture, and a little bit of milk into a slurry, and then gradually add the rest of the milk. And I like to pour the mixture evenly into each of the cups like this, little by little, because I find that, for me, it makes more consistent results. Then I cap the jars and put them in a yogurt maker at 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit for 24 hours. Okay, so I use BioGaia Lactobacillus reuteri tablets, but for the past couple years, the quality's been a little bit inconsistent. So sometimes they ferment extremely quickly with the first batch, so it's best to keep an eye on it. What I do is I just kind of take a look every couple hours, or like when I wake up the next day, and make sure it's not separating too much, or make sure that the flavor is not too bitter, and it seems to work pretty well. And this is the result. Very thick, completely undead, and crawling with microscopic goodness. And for this episode, I also tried a smaller 1 liter batch of Yogurme, which one of my viewers recommended to me, and I fermented that at 42 degrees Celsius or 107 degrees Fahrenheit for 24 hours, and it came out great. No problems whatsoever. And this one's legally yogurt. It's got both of those yogurt cultures in it that need to be in it to legally be called yogurt, except it is fermented way long. So I hope you found this video informative and useful. I'll definitely be revisiting this topic in the future. Do you include homemade yogurt in your diet? Have you noticed any improvements in mood, energy, or health in general? Do you think we should just eat store-bought yogurt, or do you think there are benefits to making yogurt with other bacteria that might not be found in store-bought yogurt? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. Take care.